Hi, and welcome back to Mr. Raymond's Social Studies Academy for our revised AP Government Exam Series, Part 2 on the Legislative Branch. As legislation literally means laws, we know that first and foremost, the job of the legislative branch is to make laws. But they have a much larger role in policy making in America and powers in guiding not just lawmaking, but overseeing the federal government. In previous lessons, we discussed the enumerated powers of Congress, those laid out in the Constitution, such as declaring war, collecting taxes, coining and borrowing money, regulating interstate and foreign commerce, and raising and supporting the military. Today, we will continue looking at how some of those powers and responsibilities are unique to each house. Again, the framers of the Constitution wanted each house to serve as a check on the other, as well as a check on the other branches of government. And we see from our benchmark that you will be responsible for knowing not just the enumerated powers, but also implied powers and other functions of Congress. And just a reminder, teachers, that this PowerPoint with a wide variety of materials are available at Mr. Raymond's Social Studies Academy, app Teachers Pay Teachers. Just click the link below this video. So let's look at one function or power that is unique to the Senate, which is referred to as their quote-unquote advice and consent role. The Senate is responsible for confirming all treaties and presidential appointments, whether those by department heads of various executive agencies or ambassadors, or most famously, the Senate's role of confirming presidential Supreme Court nominees who serve for life. One hearing by the Senate Judiciary Committee, who is tasked with confirming nominees for the court appointed by the president. Recently, the confirmation of President Trump's choice for the bench, Justice Brett Kavanaugh, became very politically heated, and it demonstrates not just the rising political divide in this country, but the power of the Senate's confirmation duty. For this reason, the president must try to gain the support of the Senate for the confirmation of their treaties and appointments. One historically famous example of this failure was after World War I with President Woodrow Wilson's unsuccessful attempt to get the Senate to ratify the Treaty of Versailles and join the International League of Nations, his brainchild. And we'll talk more about how Congress and the president work together on foreign policy when we get to the executive branch. The federal power to tax was a big issue before the drafting of the Constitution, and even during. And the framers wanted the only body of government that was originally elected by the people, the House of Representatives, to initiate taxes. The reasoning being that their short terms and reliance on the people's votes would serve as a check on this power. The House Ways and Means Committee is tasked with drafting our nation's taxes and other revenue sources like bonds and tariffs, providing its committee members with a large degree of influence and power. While the Constitution states that taxes must originate in the House of Reps, they are then sent to the Senate Finance Committee and the Senate floor to be voted on, and presidents certainly play a huge role in suggesting and persuading new tax policies. However, congressional control of revenues and funds, which is referred to as the power of the purse, is a major check on executive and bureaucratic power. We will take a look at the budget process in our next lesson, as well as the impact of Congress's power of the purse in future lessons. We looked at congressional power of impeachment in previous lessons, but it's important to remember the different roles the two houses play. As we said before, impeachment charges originate in the House of Reps, but even if they secure the simple majority to impeach the official or judge or president, that individual is then given a trial in the Senate and must be found guilty of quote-unquote treason or high crimes or misdemeanors to be removed with a 2/3 majority vote. Okay, so let's take a look at the leadership positions you will need to know for your exam in the two houses, who, as you can see from this picture, very often work with the president. The top leadership position in the House of Representatives is the Speaker of the House, third in line to take over as the president and one of the most powerful political positions in Washington. Because, as we said, the strict rules and partisanship of the House allows the Speaker to have major influence over what bills and policies will ultimately be voted on in the House. Whichever party holds the majority of seats in the House of Reps holds an election to vote on the Speaker at the start of each new session of Congress every 2 years. Current Speaker of the House, Democrat Nancy Pelosi, has had several bouts with Republican President Trump, as well as with the extreme left of her own party, and yet her power is undenied. Both houses have majority and minority leaders who influence their party members and how they will most likely vote on current events and policies. Beneath them are what are called party whips, whose main job is to ensure that party members vote the way that party leaders want them to. The Constitution makes the Vice President of the United States the President of the Senate. And while they do have an important tiebreaker vote, they usually delegate the day-to-day operations of the Senate to what's called the President Pro Tem, usually the senior member of the majority party. However, the real power position in the Senate is the majority leader, who is almost like the Speaker of the House for the Senate, controlling the calendar and what will make it to the floor. We have seen this power in action with the current majority leader, Republican Mitch McConnell, who has major influence over the operations of the Senate. Despite the differences in certain responsibilities, formality of debate, constituencies, and the powers of the two houses, the two ultimately have to work together, or at least try, in order to get things done. And again, their job isn't just making laws. They are tasked with representing their constituents' interests and oversight of the other branches. So let's start with how Congress passes bills or potential laws. Article 1 of the Constitution, again, lays out this ultimate responsibility of lawmaking. And as the nation and the size of government has grown, and policies are passed on a wide variety of issues that often go beyond the enumerated powers. We have spoken several times about the necessary and proper clause, but AP Central wants to remind you that it is this clause and the implied powers doctrine that allows Congress to pass laws on a wide variety of issues, including economic, environmental, and social. Examples of the implied powers doctrine upheld by the landmark case of McCulloch versus Maryland that we discussed in our federalism lessons allowed, for example, Congress to raise the national drinking age from 21 to 18 in 1984. Nothing about that in the Constitution. Or to create a national minimum wage and the draft. So how does a bill get passed? Well, we'll give you the overview of the process in this lesson and look at some of the politics behind it in our next. But technically, an idea for a law or a bill, until it gets passed, can come from anywhere, but it must first find a sponsor. It can start in either house, but it must make it through both houses. After it is introduced in a house, it is sent to its proper committee, and very often a subcommittee, where 90% of bills die. If it makes it out of committee, it's sent to either floor, where it is debated, and if voted yay, it starts the process all over again in the other house. It's a complicated process and a long road, but we will see in our next lesson that the Founding Fathers wanted it that way. Another thing that you'll be responsible for your exam is knowing about the committee system, which is crucial to the operation of Congress. And most of the work gets done in what are called standing committees. These are permanent committees that deal with a particular area of public policy. For instance, we mentioned the Senate Judiciary Committee, who deals with confirming federal judges and Supreme Court nominees, or the House and Ways Committee that deals with taxes. There are several benefits to the committee system. Since committees focus on one area of policy, its members become, if they aren't already, experts in a particular field. In fact, members are often chosen to serve on a committee based on former life experience. For instance, veterans might get chosen for the Armed Services Committee, or a committee might have relevance to a congressperson's district, such as a member from Iowa wanting to be on the Agriculture Committee. Another benefit to the committee system is that the workload is divided so that different committees can be working on different issues, making Congress more efficient. While there are 4 categories of committees: standing, select, joint, the other type in addition to standing committees I would know from my test is the conference committee. Often, similar bills will be making their way through both houses, or each house will make changes to one bill. However, only one version of a bill can be sent to the president. It is the job of the conference committee to quote-unquote mark up the different bills and iron out the differences, after which it is sent back to both houses for a final vote and then sent to the president. We'll come back to that process when we cover the executive branch. However, there's one final concept of the committee system that I want to leave you with, and that is the power of the committee chairperson. Do you remember in our last lesson how we discussed the discharge petition that was needed to get the Civil Rights Act of 1964 out of committee? That was because the committee chairperson refused to let it be voted out of committee. Whatever party gets the majority of seats in either house chooses the committee chairs. They control everything in the committee, which bills will be debated or not, whether there will even be a vote. Remember, again, 90% of bills die in committee, so the committee chair is a major check of the majority party on the minority party. And that's a good place to leave off, as next time we will pick up with the politics behind policy making in Congress. But before we do, let's review. What are congressional powers that are constitutionally guaranteed called enumerated powers? What are some enumerated powers? To declare war, raise and support the Army and Navy, regulate interstate and international trade, borrow and coin money. We've gone over these a few times. What is the sometimes controversial clause that gives Congress the power to create additional laws to carry out these powers? The necessary and proper or elastic clause. What are these powers called? Implied powers. What 3 roles does Congress play in policy making? Beyond making laws, they're also tasked with representing their constituents and oversight of the federal government. Where does a bill go after it has been introduced? Committee, and then usually sent to a subcommittee. What are some advantages to the committee system? They're more efficient, and they allow their representatives to become experts in their particular committee field. Which house can bring impeachment charges? The House of Reps. What role does the Senate play in the impeachment process? They hold the trial. How does Congress have the quote-unquote power of the purse? They control public monies, and they approve the budget, which we'll cover next time. Which house must initiate quote-unquote revenue, aka taxes? The House of Representatives. Most work in Congress gets done in these standing committees. What are standing committees? They are permanent committees that specialize in an area of policy. Around what percentage of bills die in committee? 90. What is the head of the House of Representatives title? Speaker of the House. What are conference committees? Those are joint committees, meaning they are made up of members of both houses, which iron out the differences between a bill. What does the Senate provide, quote-unquote, advice and consent on? Treaties and presidential appointments. And that's it. I want to thank you guys for watching. Be sure to subscribe, because up next we're going to look at Congress Part 3. We're going to finish off the branch. And just a reminder, teachers, that this PowerPoint with a detailed lesson plan and with additional activities, worksheets, guided notes, quiz, and other activities are available on Teachers Pay Teachers. Just search for Mr. Raymond's Social Studies Academy at Teachers Pay Teachers, or click the link below this video. Thanks again for watching, guys.